Welcome to the 100x Life podcast, where we activate people who desire to live the words of Jesus and experience the abundant life he promises. I'm your host, Rob Dayton, and I hope this podcast inspires you to put in the work of following Jesus.
Now the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free.
Hey, 100x Lifers, welcome back to the podcast. I've got an exciting interview with Izabella Boyd. Come on.
Hi,
And
Rob.
we're going to talk to her. Yeah, we're going to talk to her about what she's been up to. She's a 100x Life coach, but many more things. And she's working on a coaching business, and that is her true passion. And so what I want to frame the conversation is that as we're headed towards January 2nd, there's so many opportunities for you to be influential at that time, to not just be a participant in the 62-day challenge, but to also be a coach, be a leader, be an influencer in the words of Jesus. It's truly my desire to see the words of Jesus lived in the body of Christ, and that's going to be our legacy. This generation is alive right now and will be gone before you know it. And what is our legacy? What is our legacy for Jesus and his gospel and what that looks like? So let's get into it. Izabella, great to be with you. You're a coach in the master's program, in the TMPx space, the master's program X and Life Launch. You're launching a business. You've also been a 100x Life coach. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why are you so interested in all this coaching and helping people get to the next step?
Well, Rob, I was born with the God-given talent of leadership and entrepreneurship, and I have all those desires in my heart. And, like if I'm going to bake a bread, I immediately think, how can I sell this bread? I can make this a stand. So everything comes through my mind like this. And I found myself homeschooling my son. He has some learning disabilities. So I found myself unexpectedly homeschooling him, and I did for 15 years. During the process, I was like, my mind was taken. That was pretty much all I could do. But I would always think, I know I have those gifts and talents is for something. And at the same time, you don't want to put down what you're doing, because I think so many women out there who decide to stay home, we have that mindset that those gifts need to be put aside. If we are going to stay at home, they have to be on hold. We can't participate in God's calling until we are done with all of this. However, what I learned was that I do have a calling. I didn't know what it was. And that's how I found the master program for women, which now we are working with the TMPx. It's like an arm of the master program. Through this program, I found that, if Jesus trained his disciples for 3 years, we need some training too, right? If they need it from him for 3 years, we need some training too. And that's what coach is about, is to help people through the sanctification process, to finding their calling process, because that's how we maximize. And I think in the way things are happening nowadays, this is more important than ever for us to be bold, for us to spread the kingdom on earth. And we all have that obligation, a command to make disciples. But how does it look like for a stay-at-home woman? That's, I know the master program in TMP tend to be a little more directed towards marketplace. I'm not in the marketplace. I'm not completely content in being a stay-at-home mom, but I don't want to be a career woman either. So I think a lot of women like me fall through the cracks. And that's what my coaching is about, to address that real problem of having those powerful, ingenious women who are doing what they know God's supposed to do. I mean, Titus says, the women teach to run the home. So it's a very worthwhile calling, but it's not really the calling itself, but is it where we are being trained for the calling. That's the position we are in for the calling. It's not in the marketplace. It's not somewhere else. It's from home, but doesn't end at home.
I really love that specialty. You're specializing, and that's always great, because when you have a specialty, it means you're really good in that space. Sounds like coaching women who are kind of lost between these two places of I'm a stay-at-home mom and marketplace leader. When I heard you say like full-time job, I was thinking W-2, which almost sounds like slavery at this point to me. So like really interesting how you discovered this ability through coaching your son. Can you connect the dots? Like, what is it about that you discovered with your son that kind of said, hey, I can do this. I can transform. Is it about transforming lives? What is the thing that was so attractive that you were able to accomplish coaching your son that now transfers into a business?
Well, when I was doing the master program and I was learning how to develop myself and refine myself towards my calling, and I'm like, I have my son full attention every day. I'm going to start using this on him. So, when we go somewhere, like we talk about working here, I don't think I'm called to do this, mom. I think my gift is more towards that. So even when you have somebody who's being homeschooled and you have that audience. So while I was stuck, I'm going to say stuck with quotation marks because I didn't have an option. He needed me to do it. And I was clear that God wanted me to do it. So by working through him, and I could see the transformation, not just for myself, because I'm literally a new person, and to see through him in how we forget. Okay, we forget what we learned. That's why we have to relearn. That's why we need to read the Bible so many times, because we read something today, tomorrow it means something else. And seeing this through him, but mainly me being able to use that calling at home, made me realize, if we are home, you have a mission too. You can't be passive, just planning the dinner, planning the thing, which is part of our deal. But all of those are stepping stones. They're training for what's coming afterwards, because they will grow. They will not need you anymore. And just like a retired guy or girl, a woman, don't want to wait to retire to then figure out what to do. We don't want to wait for our children to be grown to then figure out what to do. We want to prepare ourselves, and when that time comes, we are ready to run.
It feels like it's this combination of taking what you learned in the master's program, and I want to spend some time talking about what that is. So in the master's program, you're learning that, and then you're saying, "Hey, let me apply this right now to my son," seeing the unique abilities, and that in through that conversation, and then realizing all the while you're moving from a mother to a different purpose, and using that same thing that you were able to do with your son to help other women realize their purpose beyond kids. Man, I think that that's phenomenal. And so, just a little bit about the master's program. The master's program is apostrophe S. It's the Jesus program. And in that program, it's very simple. It's just balance, margin, focus. And we're focused on 10 responsibilities that God's given only you. We call that life mastery, and life mission is the triangulation of your passion, potential, and purpose. And what's really unique about women that you're telling us, Izabella, is that if a woman should be so fortunate to find children, maybe even at an early age, they are captivated. Moms are captivated. The kids become the purpose.
Yeah.
That is the life force. That's what you're telling us. And it's interesting because
Well,
men are so different. Well, go ahead. How
Well, I
would you,
would say it's not exactly that he was my purpose, but he was my training ground to fulfill my purpose. So, because I think I personally, and I know a lot of women, we are conditioned to think that stay at home is less than, right? We grow up. Now we know in our heads, but when I started doing this, I have to fight that identity crisis of this is not enough. This is not enough. And then you realize God put you in position to train you for something bigger. So it's not so much that my son was my purpose, but he was the means to which I could refine myself and my gift to go, because the love God, love God, love people, make disciples. So I'm going loving God and loving people. That's my family first. At this phase, at this time, I'm going to love my people, but I'm not going to sit and wait for the opportunity to knock on my door for me to learn something. Through this process, you are learning and developing yourself through the master program. And at the same time, parallel, we go through the process of sanctification. If I'm going to be a stay at home mom or a stay at home woman, whether you're a mom or not, you have your husband. We have to live with a person who is completely different, who has their own faults, like the broken Adam, we are the broken Eve. So we have to learn to filter the house life, the home life, through God's eyes as a training ground, a stepping
Mhm.
stone. So that's more what I meant.
Yeah, I see that, and then I would say, and you're training women who maybe who have had a purpose in their kids and saying that's not gonna last, they're actually gonna leave. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm connecting it, is that with guys, it's less complicated. Very few men are getting their purpose is usually exterior to the family, which is a different problem, right? They don't see the importance that women may see more naturally about the investment. To your point, I hate it when women say, "I'm just a stay-at-home mom." That phrase "just" is repulsive to me because being a mom and growing in an individual is perhaps the greatest privilege, opportunity, and influence anyone can have on the world. So I think it is actually one of the most important roles in society. And so as a woman who's in the master's program, what you're doing as a coach is you're saying, "Hey, look, yes, that's great. Good. Focus on your motherhood." And then that is going to lead to something else. That's going to naturally dovetail into this larger purpose. The kids are going to leave. The highest time of divorce is the first 2 years of marriage and when the kids leave. And
Yeah.
that's primarily because the couple has use the kids as their purpose to the erosion of their marriage and relationship. And when the kids are gone, there is no reason to be married anymore. So, yeah, I love what you're doing. I love that you're helping women capitalize and keep going and get the second half of life really become something intentional, something purposeful, something that is talking about their calling. And you mentioned calling, and I'm noting that I'm looking at your background, and your calling awaits
Yeah.
is
A
this.
journey beyond the home.
There
Yeah.
it
Of course,
is.
I don't know if you can read it over there in the bottom.
Tell us about that and tell us why that's so exciting for you.
Well, it's exciting for me because I know there are women like out there like me. I just wish, like when I did the master program, right, and I was with this group of amazing women, and we are doing exercises like let's write down what you do, and it's surgery. There are CEOs, there are authors, and I'm like making dinner, doing laundry, planning, but that's the mindset that we have that I want to change that. I want for us to realize it's not just making dinner, you're preparing nutrition. So you have to know about nutrition. So for
I would even say you're preparing an experience.
Yeah, it's just so much more than that. And Rob, when you're working on the marketplace, you have promotions, you have salary increases. We don't have that. So how do we value ourselves when we
Yeah,
don't have these external values? So what do? We look to our husbands for their validation. And the husbands are working. My husband, he works 12 hours a day. He is such a hardworking man. He support us. He support us throughout this homeschooling. He works so hard. He helps my mother. He helps my sister. And here I am, with this things in my mind, these ideal things that I think he should do. He should would be great if he did that. And I found myself reading the Bible and saying, oh, this is what a leader looks like in the Bible. Well, all of a sudden, I realized, am I using the Bible against my husband? This is terrible. This is not at all what is meant to be for the housewife, for the house mom to number one anchor her identity on the
right.
husband. And because at the end of the day, when we go to heaven, we are not going to be married. Everybody has their own journey.
That's right. This is powerful because let me translate a little bit because I think the reason why this is so meaningful for men to hear and for women to hear is that you're tapping on women undervaluing their role. You said the meal's about nutrition. In my mind, it's definitely about that, and also you're curating this experience. You and I are coaching people to unlearn what they have learned, but the mom gets to do the law of first learning, actually input first and create the experience that's going to compound interest in a life later that doesn't have to unlearn a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
that was, malnutritious, using your terms.
Well, and sitting on the table with a family, if you see, forgive me, I don't know the numbers, but the amount of times that Jesus sit on the table, a meal together in the Old Testament, the New Testament. So, Moses' mom, what did she do? She raised her son and the impact that she had. in humanity by doing her job of raising her son for the first 5 years.
Totally. And then when we go out to dinner we go out to dinner, we go out to lunch, we have breakfast with people, because that somehow having a meal and sharing that meal is curating a better relationship. So I love that you're talking about this, and I love that you bring up your husband, because I think that that is so interconnected with what you're saying, this devaluing of your role. And then also, and I hope we get into the 100x life aspect of
Yeah,
like how to live. I think that's where you're going, how to
yeah.
live the things you're learning. But now you're judging your husband against what is a biblical rubric. I'm wondering, have you connected with how much is connected between I'm undervaluing myself and then I'm undermining my husband? Are those instrumental? Are they intrinsically connected?
Yeah, 100%. Because if you're undervaluing yourself, you're looking for your value somewhere else. And if you're at home, even if you're not, if you're married, you're expecting your husband. So you, at that point, you start undervalue your husband because he's not giving you what you want, but he shouldn't be giving what you want or need, I should say. Only Jesus can do that for you. Only Jesus can do that for us. And that's where the 100x life came to me. And it was so pivotal to even to what I'm doing now as a coaching, because it's hard for you to teach other women their roles if you're undervaluing yourself and your husband. So I did
That's so powerful. So, and I want to relate it to men too, but let me just restate what I think you're saying is there is this connection. If I'm devaluing myself, in other words, I'm not seeing myself as valuable, purposeful, and I think what we're talking about is in the context of society. In other words, this is where women might say, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Again, it just drives me crazy. That is actively devaluing this really meaningful role in life. And what you're saying is when women do that, they will naturally look to their husbands in a kind of a devaluing way.
their value, their contribution to the relationship, to the household, and to what they bring. Because at the end of the day, my husband might not want to sip wine with me the way I envision us with the sunset sipping wine, but he's bringing home the dough, right? He would jump in front of a bullet to save me. Yeah, but would he cook with me? But would he, bring exactly what I want? Would he talk exactly the way I would like to be talked to? So we put more emphasis on those things that are not as important when something that he's doing that is so important. It's like the foundation of our society. When the family is together and the man provides and the man protects, and the women make this life atmosphere in the house where it will produce children, even if they don't do what you want, even they don't follow exactly your advice. But the word said, if we bring them the way they should go, they will not depart from it. So they can even be doing something away from that, from our teachings, but what you thought is going to be on the back of their minds. So it's
Right.
going to be keeping them in the right track, whatever, that's between them and God once they did their part. But how are we going to do that if we just send the kids off? If we don't have dinner together, how are we going to have this influence? It's just really hard. So,
So right on. And what's really interesting is what you're saying to yourself, and kind of in a previous, when we were talking before, you were saying that, hey, I've got to find my value, my self value in Jesus and in that relationship. And I know that on the two sides of the equation for men and women, this is the same exact thing.
yeah.
I talk to so many men who they're trying to find some sort of answer or completion in their spouse. And then it doesn't work because they're not finding their sustenance in God, their meaning in God, their purpose in God, their love, their key source of love from God. And somehow when we do that, we put up these, and I think this is what you were saying, is that we're putting up these unreasonable expectations for our spouses. And in this case, you're talking about women for their husbands, because we're not getting that sustenance from Christ. And it's really interesting because, and I'm curious what you think, but like what I see in the people I'm working with is that when they focus on hearing from Jesus how much they're loved, it's almost like their reservoir of love fills up so that they could actually invest in their spouse in a new and more powerful way than if they're trying to get something from their spouse and they're just continually eternally disappointed.
Right. Yeah, and I think it comes down to our identity in Christ. We are we are to engage, is an engaging process, the process of sanctification, to be more like Christ every day. So deny ourselves. And can I jump into the what influenced me on the 100x?
Yeah, let's go.
So I'm a learner is one of my 5 strengths. So I'm always learning things and learning new ways to do things. So here what I came, and I'm a strategic too. So okay, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm going to be the best I can do, the most efficient. So I'm using those skills, those entrepreneurial skills towards the house. Why? Because I'm running a bit. No, because I'm getting joy out of it. So I'm using my gifts in my household so it doesn't feel like a trap. It doesn't feel like I'm not using my gifts. So I did the master program. The master program is your training on how you're going to show up in God's plan. He has a plan. We don't have to figure out the plan. He has a plan. We are part of the plan. What part is that? How do we figure out our part in God's plan? I have those skills. How do I find what I'm supposed to do with them? That's through the master program. That's from TMPx. And if you're a stay-at-home woman, your calling awaits. But throughout this process, you have to parallelly do the process of sanctification. And when you are at it for so long, I've been through this process since I was saved, and I invited Jesus to be my Lord and Savior. I have been through this process of being more like Jesus. So deny yourself. So I'm going to specifically talk about this, deny yourself. So here I am. Okay, the year's going to start, and I'm feeling a friction. I'm back on that space where I'm holding some resentment towards my husband because this and that is not just like I thought it would be. And this can ends up being an idol. You want so much for that to be the way you picture, the way you see the Bible, the way you see the Bible is picturing that. That can be an idol.
The way you and maybe another way to say it is the way you think that someone needs to be or should be.
Yeah, and our life together, not him alone, but what a marriage should be. Should we all be Priscilla and Aquila? That would be great, but we are not. So are you going to resent our spouses because they're not Priscilla, they are not Aquila? Now we're going to live to work with what we got. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling those thoughts, spending too much time in my head. And then here comes Rob with 100x life. And you tell us about the challenge of living Jesus' words, which is literally the process of a sanctification, but you're
Come on.
breaking down. And as a learner, I can really appreciate that. Okay, break it down, Rob. Tell me, what do you see? So I started the process and we work on our mindset. And from working to the mindset, I'm already like, okay, I have a lot of good mindset here because, transform your mind has been upfront. But when the word number 6 came, deny yourself, I'm the queen of denying myself, right? I'm at home. I didn't want to be home. I didn't think I want to be home. But it turned out, Rob, that I did want to be home. I just thought it wasn't good enough. I needed to be anyway. So
And
I
that is the kind of the mind virus of a mom, is that you're fighting this culture, and it's a real cultural battle
have.
where other women are saying, "Hey, well, what about you? What about your body? What about your role, your mark in the world, your legacy? Why would you waste your time, being home? We could put off motherhood for later."
Yeah. Girls, trust me, you want to have them young. It's so much easier to, sit on the floor anyway. But what I thought, Rob, was for what I heard you saying, what the 100X was all about, I said, okay, if I'm a stay at home person, a wife, I'm going to focus all of the words of Jesus towards my husband, not towards the world, not how I can save the world. But if I have those thoughts, they are not pure, they're not uplifting. I have to fix that. How am I going to fix that? I'm going to focus all of the words of Jesus towards him,
And does that mean that you're going to practice living them
towards him specifically. So it came to deny yourself. And I'm like, journaling. Oh my gosh, Rob, the journaling, the way you put the journaling is like mind blowing. I never thought about that way where you see what the issue is, you see where yourself is, and then you say, see what person of the Trinity you are talking to, and you ask, hey, tell me about this, and then you write it down because he's will hear his voice. So like, okay, well, let's do that then. I just jumped. I did everything the way we're supposed to, I was told. And I started journaling about deny yourself, how, Lord, I'm denying myself. I'm giving up dreams. Giving up ideals and goals. Why do I feel so weary? And so, in other words, I'm denying myself. I'm truly denying myself. But why why am I feeling this way? Shouldn't I be feeling a little more joy towards doing what you're asking me to do? Well, he never promised us that it will be easy, right? So I'm journaling about all the ways I'm denying myself until it came to the time that God said that I'm supposed to hear what he's saying about that. That's what I said about this. Now, what do you say about this? And he said, yes, you are denying yourself. You're doing so good of this in this area. But are you really denying yourself when you're compensating by overeating? When you're compensating by shopping? So the realization that I came is, yes, I was denying myself in this aspect. But am I denying myself? Am I compensating for that? I was. So I was compensating for that. Okay. If I'm not going to find joy in denying myself here, at least I'm going to find joy in that cake. So, I start gaining weight, and I was overweight, and which is not healthy. So when I started your journey, and you exercise, you don't eat sugar, you don't drink, you don't do all of that, it was the perfect opportunity for me to deny the body so my mind
Wow.
would flow. And what he said is, you're not feeling the joy because you're really not deny yourself in the true sense of it, which is you deny yourself and you let me bring that joy to you. You're going behind me and eating and shopping. So just let me do it. Just let me do it. Stop trying to compensate. And that's what I did.
It's so powerful because, you're kind of showing me kind of a new dimension of deny myself that I think I inherently knew, but I think you're pointing it out and it's very valuable to talk about is that the self is actually the body and the body's desires to do a thing. So with your husband, the body's like, hey, we're not being treated fairly, or he's not doing this, and I'd really need this. The body's talking, not the mind, not the spirit. And then also the more obvious things about food and the stimulation of purchasing things. The body's like, ooh, I want that. I want this.
I deserve that. Look at
Yeah,
what's
well, yeah.
happened.
I mean, there's also all sorts of different messages that we could give, and that the body could give us. I deserve. I need. The cravings start. The body's good at getting those cravings going, so that we actually act upon it. And so you're giving this new dimension of deny yourself, in that it really shows the picture of the triune being. And denying yourself is not denying the spirit. You wouldn't deny your spirit, you're going to deny your body and what its cravings are. And you're just crystallizing that and showing us the realm of possibility between relationships, and then how those relationships are spilling into the body's desires for other things.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was word number 6. It's 55 words. So imagine how far I went if number 6 was already this revelation. All the other words that came, and when I realized, okay, all this deny myself, now I'm going to truly deny myself. And because of the challenge, I think the challenge was even more helpful because it was the accountability part of it, that helps. Like, I don't want you, and I'm a competitive too. So I'm like, okay, if that's a challenge, I'm gonna meet this challenge. So as things went forward, and I'm reading the new words and treating seeing my husband, because I want to. If Jesus is telling me to treat the world like this, how much more my husband? So I'm starting change. When he is going out to work, I'm looking at this man walking out, the provider in him, the hardworking. He never complains. He comes home and he never complains. Sometimes like, I don't feel like cooking. Don't worry, I'll go bring food. After working all day, come home, exercise so he stays in shape. And, and I started focusing on the appreciation rather than what he was lacking. and
It's
only
like a
with
whole
Jesus.
new mindset. You're saying that I even hear the mindset being played out. You're like, there goes the hard worker. There goes the man that's dedicated to me and this family is a very empowering mindset
Yeah.
versus there goes the guy that won't cook with me.
Mhm. Yeah, and,
Right.
we're married for 33 years, Rob. It's not like this was like, "Oh, surprise, all of a sudden I see him like this." No, I knew it all along. I knew that. But like I said, we keep forgetting things, and then we deviate, but then we have to come back, and then we
Mhm.
deviate, and then we have to come back. But the way 100X proposes, he made a pivoted that will be harder to go back to
Mm.
because the mindset is stretched a little farther than it has ever before.
Wow. That's so cool. So let's get into the, because you're interested in being a 100x life coach and doing that, encouraging other women. You've got a coaching practice. And I would imagine, well, how would you characterize your purpose, your why? Is that a simple statement that you've developed?
Yeah, my purpose is to help and guide stay-at-home women to promote their thriving families so they can be part of the Great Commission.
That's so cool. I love that. That's something for all of us to be really refined and really have that roll off our tongue. But like you're doing that. And then how does 100x life fit into that purpose in terms of coaching for you?
Well, if that's the nitty gritty, right? That's the what's behind all the activity you're doing in the master program. So you have those activities and you're discovering all those things, but how do you stay true to Jesus and his mind and his words and his commandments throughout the process of discovering your calling? So it makes where you're not, you know, out focus in the process, but you're really into it through the eyes of Jesus, not just your coaching thing. And by the way, I haven't opened doors yet because you know, I'm writing the content, I'm doing all of this, and it's so much to do. And really, I have been focused on my family, but the minute my son graduated from high school, then I was like, okay, now it's my turn. And I was ready to do everything that I did that I otherwise couldn't do it. And it's God's timing. And for us to realize, it's okay if you do a little later because you're focusing on your family right now. You don't have to do it in your own timing. His timing will be perfect. Now I have more experience and more to say than I had before. I would have to have sacrificed my family to pursue this earlier. And I was committed to not do that.
So now you're preparing. How do you make the decision between I'm prepared and actually hit the button with inviting people into the experience? Are you the type of person who wants to have all the ducks in a row completely before you ask the first person, or are you one who can kind of do it on the fly? How would you characterize
I
yourself?
have a hard time doing on the fly. My number one strength is strategy. So I really struggle with doing on the fly. Part of my reality is that I don't have a big network. And it's okay. I don't have a big network and I have to start from ground zero in that part. So it's not so much that I'm skeptical, I'm afraid, even though it does have an element, but I have been working towards this. You can't present something that you're not ready for it. And I speak a different language, I believe, than you would to your people. So I need to prepare that. I need to write the content. I need to make the website, which I did with Jenna D. Oh my gosh, what a great experience, by the way. She did exactly the way I envisioned. It was a great experience. But how am I going to open doors if I don't have anybody to say my doors are open? I have to first say, hey, I exist. Hey, this is what I'm about. Now my doors are open. You can come in. If I had the audience already, it would have been really easy to jump right in, but I don't.
I appreciate all the effort you're putting into it, and I think you're gonna find it's easier than you think to find people to join you. You're gonna take 100x life, and you're gonna integrate that into the TMPx master's program method.
That's right. That's right. I think it's pretty essential. I mean, whether you do TMPx or not, which I think is essential, I
Yeah,
think everybody has to have that first step to do 100X, focus on something that you're specifically struggling with. And then, you can do it again and again and again. in different focuses. You can focus in different aspects. And trust me, they
Yeah,
will
as you
pick up
said, you
all
were
the
focused on
facts.
your husband was one prevailing focus, and then there's other people you could focus on, same, the words of Jesus.
Yeah, then you can start focusing on the word of Jesus towards your clients and towards the people at church, towards your life in general, towards the mission that you joined.
I love that framework. It's almost like you're saying we're looking at the people that we're serving or the people that we're committed to through the lens of Jesus, and following him looks like putting his words into practice for them.
Yeah,
And I love that it is a rinse and repeat. I mean, how many lifetimes does it take to perfect, to be
yeah,
perfect? As he said, be perfect like my father is perfect. Like, wow, we believe it's possible because he said to do it, but also that's quite a journey. And we probably won't be completely perfect until we're with him.
yeah.
So do you think you will have something like a 62-day challenge in your coaching experience? Will you bring in the physical aspects of 100x life?
Um, Honestly, what I thought about to adapt was to, in each lesson, maybe bring that words separately, because I think it's important for us to do the fire hose challenge first. It was very important for me to know everything, ba, 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 every day. It's so overwhelming. But his word will not come. How you say when is
It will not return void.
a return void? Yes. So we have all this in our minds. So I think it's important to do the challenge first, and then you
Yeah.
adapt to the way you want. But it's very important for you to see the big picture first, and then you can dissect that big picture. So I would say let them do the 62 challenge with you, and then slow down with me.
Wow. So cool. I love it. Well, Isabella, thank you so much for the conversation. All the best with you on TMPx. I know you're an amazing coach. I'm excited to see you
Thank
really
you.
launch that in your brand.
Yeah.
And people might not know this, but as a part of TMPx, I'm actually Isabella's coach. She has access to me. So that's another great relationship to have and
Yeah.
to be focused on it. It's really interesting. One thought maybe would be good for closing, and you kind of brought it up earlier, but a lot of people just don't recognize the power of coaching and what it does.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about why that is. Have you thought about that? Because in my estimation, everybody needs a coach. Like you
Yeah.
get a coach because you want to be the best at something. Of course, I want to be the best Jesus follower possible. Why wouldn't I have a coach? And some people call the pastor the coach, but there's not a one-on-one relationship where they're
Right.
actually challenging you and getting into your stuff. Why do you think people inherently don't get that, okay, I need a coach when I'm learning how to play soccer, but I don't need one for life.
Well, I think God made us to live in community and to sharpen each other's iron, sharp iron. And a coach will brainstorm with you and be able to hold the mirror for you to hear what you're saying and you see in a different light. And sometimes that different interpretation will trigger something in you that you would not do it otherwise. And it's somebody who knows you, it's somebody who knows your goals, and somebody who knows your personality. So you have that brainstorming. So rather than do that with AI, who doesn't really know you like a coach does.
That's really good point. And it's so funny because I was on a client call earlier today, and this person is a coach. And so I was asking them questions about their coaching and what made their practice brilliant. And then they were telling me about it. And then we were really working on their business, their coaching business. And so I said, why don't you use that same philosophy and mindset with your own business? And it was really fascinating to watch because if I think you're right, it's knowing the person and asking the right questions is what's so powerful, because they came to the conclusion, I don't. And I'm wondering why I don't.
Yeah.
Because obviously I value this enough to export it and charge people for it. Why am I not using this? And I think coaching just does that again and again and again. And I have great confidence in you and your ability to coach businesses, even though you could say, I did the stay-at-home mom gig, because I've seen it time and time again. It's just the right question. You don't have to know everything about a business. You just have to have the right question to get
Right.
them thinking and talking and discovering where they need to go for the next step. And
Yeah.
how much truer is that in the Jesus following life, We're trying to figure out how to follow Jesus, as you point out, in
Exactly.
community. Having someone ask us the right questions about where we are at right now is going to loosen. It's going to
Yeah.
loosen new
And
thoughts.
point you back in the right direction, the right biblical direction. I mean, we are Christian coach, so that's at the end of the day, all the advice is based. You have that biblical uh, background to give the advice towards God, and we don't know all the Bible. We don't know sometimes the way a Bible verse affected you can be allied to your client, right? The coach will have that experience like, hey, when this happened to me, and it's different from a coaching and a friend, right? A friend, it has a different role. The coaching is specifically focused on you and your success. So it's different than a friend.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful that you're paying the person too. Like if you're not paying your coach, please pay your coach. The more you pay and sacrifice to pay the coach, the more you're going to access that person's questions and really think seriously about what their challenges are to you. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about your future and see it unfold as
Thank you.
your coach.
And I know for all
And
your clients who have wives who are stay at home, they can come to my website, my brand new website. So maybe you give me a view.
yeah,
That
tell us what the website is that you're pointing and point them to.
is yourcallingawaits.com.
Yourcallingawaits.com if you would like to explore more with Izabella Boyd and her specialty of actually taking you from a stay-at-home mom and beyond the kid season into something extremely purposeful. Yourcallingawaits.com. Check that out. And thank you so much, Izabella. And
Thank
guys,
you, Rob.
we will see you next week. But until then, I pray that you would live 100x life and
Yeah.
continue working the process of growth that Jesus has placed before you, even the circumstances that are difficult. Let's go.
Yep. Let's go.
If you believe in the 100x Life movement, please follow and invite a friend by sharing this podcast. The 100x Life movement can also be found on Instagram and Facebook, and also at 100xlife.com. The 100x Life podcast was produced by Jenna D of Jenna D Services with music by Ryan Ellis.
Was lost, but you found me here, and your fire burns inside. It will not disappear because the Spirit